Welcome to my channel, The Binge Eating Therapist. I'm Sarah, former binge eater turned psychotherapist, and my mission is to use this space to bring content to you to help you understand your struggle with food and break free from binge eating. Today I want to talk about mindful eating. It's one of those things that's often touted as a tool to stop binge eating. Because if you think about it, if you're eating mindfully, you're probably not going to binge. Broadly speaking, mindful eating is about being fully attentive when you eat. So it's about paying attention to how the food looks, how it smells, how it tastes, the textures, how it feels in your body, what's going on in your mind and your emotions. It's about being fully immersed and very aware in the here and now when you're eating. Now, if you're anything like me, whenever I heard a new tool or a new thing that was supposed to help stop binge eating, I would get really excited and I would be like, I found my answer. And I definitely did that with mindful eating. When I heard about it, I thought, this is it. This is the answer I've been looking for. I've just got to eat mindfully and then I won't binge. And so I immersed myself in it for a few weeks and I thought, this is amazing. And then the binging came back and I thought, another thing that didn't work. Let's put it on the discard pile. And so what I want to do in this video is talk to you about how mindful eating can help, but also the caveats and the places that people trip up with it, where it could actually lead to making your binge eating worse if you find yourself falling into these traps. So when we think about how mindful eating can be helpful to binge eating recovery, the awareness part is key. So Janine Roth talks about how awareness and compulsion cannot coexist, because the latter involves obliteration of the former. In order to go into compulsive behaviours, part of us has to switch off. It's like our executive, higher decision-making processes go offline and we go into the compulsive behaviour. So if we stay in awareness, we're not in compulsion, which is what binge eating is. It's a compulsive behaviour. Another helpful thing with mindful eating is that it doesn't set these limits about what you're allowed to eat or how much you're supposed to eat. The idea is that by paying attention and immersing yourself in the eating experience, that you develop those skills to become more internally regulated with the way that you eat. So therefore the messages are coming from you about what feels good for you and what's going to make you feel balanced and no longer battling with the binging. The other thing that's quite nice about mindful eating is that it prioritizes the enjoyment of food. The idea is that food is supposed to be an enjoyable experience, and if we can connect with that experience and fully be in it, experiencing the experience of eating, then eating is just going to feel wonderful, right? Kind of sounds too good to be true in some ways, right? Here's where it all goes wrong. Firstly, if you've got a very busy mind about food and you have lots of those diet culture rules and messages rolling around in your head, what often happens, and I see mindful eating even being used in this way, is it feels like, well, if I eat mindfully and I'm paying lots of attention and I'm never overeating, then I'm going to lose weight. So mindful eating becomes this weight loss tool as opposed to this tool for balance and regulation. And we see this co-opted by people all the time, that mindful eating is often turned into this hunger and fullness diet. So now you can get up in your head about the outcome, like what is this supposed to look like? Because that's what diet mentality does. It's all about the outcome. And so if you're going into mindful eating thinking, this means I should never binge, it means I should never overeat, and it means I should lose weight, that's already taking you out of the moment and the experience of mindful eating. And it disrupts the process. When we're so invested in what the outcome is supposed to be, it makes it very hard to actually be mindful and notice what's going on in the moment, because it just clouds it and gets in the way. And this leads into the black and white all or nothing thinker, which most people who struggle with binge eating are. So mindful eating can become another thing that you are on the wagon or off the wagon with. I felt this when I first heard about it. I applied those rules meticulously and I sat there without any distractions and I ate my food and it was all very well for a couple of weeks. And then when I binged, I found myself back in this binging cycle because to go back to mindful eating was feeling like getting back on the wagon, getting back to putting these rules in, because it started to feel like it was rules. I'm not allowed to do anything else when I'm eating. And the awareness part of mindful eating sounds really simple, but to be aware and to be with ourselves in our own experiences, watching our own minds and what's going on, can be excruciating. You may be somebody who has a very critical voice in your head, or many of you will have a critical voice in your head and you don't even know it's a critical voice in your head. You just think it's these things that I believe about myself or that I know are true. So when we're sat with just our own mind and with what's going on in the moment, that discomfort comes up. And it doesn't feel rational because it feels like we should be able to just sit and pay attention to our food. What's wrong with me now that I can't do that? That's another thing to tell yourself you're doing wrong, and another layer of shame to be added on. And I don't think that this idea of awareness and presence being difficult is exclusive to people struggling with binge eating, or even exclusive to our culture today. One of my favourite quotes is by a 16th century or 17th century French philosopher called Blaise Pascal. And he says, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. This was back before all the distractions that we have now, the busy culture that we seem to be living, the value on productivity that is so rife now, the comparison parts of social media and how our lives are lived out. But it looks like this has been a problem for human beings for centuries. So when we're talking about bringing mindfulness into eating, and this is another thing that I think happens with binge eating, is people just want to change the food. Don't want to look at the rest of my life. The rest of my life is okay, or at least it will be once I've sorted out the food. But like this idea of we can be mindful with the food and then live mindlessly the rest of the time, I don't think works, because then all your mindful moments around the food are bringing up the really difficult stuff. I feel like this is a broader existential topic here about what it means to be able to be present with ourselves. I feel like that is a skill that is so important to practice in order to be able to break free from any kind of compulsion or destructive behaviour, binge eating or something else. So how can we apply something like this concept of mindful eating that's actually going to help you with binge eating recovery? I think if we get rid of the idea of mindfulness, and I prefer the word presence. Now, this doesn't mean perfect presence. Maybe the question you could just ask yourself now is, how can I be a bit more present with food than I am now? Because you've got to watch out for that black and white thinking that either wants to do mindful eating or not do mindful eating. And is there a way to just bring in a bit more attention? I know we don't want to pay attention to the food, but if we want to learn something new, and that's what I think recovery is, it's learning something new. It's not just getting rid of something old. Anything that we need to learn that we haven't done before has to involve our attention and intention. You can't learn how to play an instrument without giving it your full attention when you're practicing. And I think it can be similar with food, but we just want to bring it in gradually, because it's so triggering and provocative if eating is a difficult experience for you, if you have a lot of emotions and many judgments that go on around this. So bringing in a little bit more presence might just be one meal a day. I sit and I don't do anything else but eat, just once a day, or even once a week is a step towards it. It could be the voice in my head just gets too loud when I'm trying to do mindful eating. So maybe you listen to something, but you keep all your other senses on your food. So you can look at your food, and that is already more present with your food than it would be if you were watching TV as well. We have to talk about screen time and binge eating, because they almost invariably go together. People tend to be watching TV on their phones, maybe in their car driving, reading. How often is it that when you binge, you're just binging? There is always a minority of people that is the case, and I do meet them, but on the whole, most of us who binge eat, we want to kind of create that splitting experience where there's something going on with the food and our attention is directed away. There's something about bringing that together, but doing it in a way that you can tolerate. So it's a little bit by a little bit. It might even be, if you always eat your meals in front of the TV, maybe you have the first 5 bites without the TV on and then turn the TV on. How can you bring it in a little bit at a time? Because to go from 0 to 100, I think is what trips us up every time. So, love to know what your experiences are of mindful eating, whether it's something you've ever incorporated. Do you find it helpful? Have you fallen into any of these pitfalls? So let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.